I think Kobe is returning to trainings. We'll see and assess for this game already. Of course, he cannot play a full game. It's a long time without training. So I think Mate has an issue. He has something during the game, and we have to assess. I think the rest is normal.
And obviously, when the fixtures come out, City at home is one of the main fixtures United fans will be looking at. But you've got such a big game coming up on Thursday. You've got players coming back. Will you be rotating? Is that something you can't afford to do in a fixture like this?
No, we are going to focus game by game. We have a few games to recover from the last game, and then we'll have few games to. I think the focus on that department would be more the next one in the Premier League. So we want to win this game. We want to improve in our. In the league table, and especially we want to win games, so we are going to have full focus on this game.
Can you just assess Garnacho at the moment? He's obviously played a huge amount of games actually for a young player. Maybe he's not quite delivering what people want, but equally he's still learning how to play the game. How do you assess him?
No, I think he's doing the right things. Of course, he like any player in our team has to choose better, especially in the last third. We have to improve. All the players have to improve. Maybe Bruno is the one that can do something, assist or scoring goals very easily. So we have to improve as a team to help Garnacho. But Garnacho is improving the way he defends, the way he runs. So he's working hard. He needs to score more goals and assists. That is clear. But also the other guys. So I see him as a young kid that wants in that department like the other guys on the team.
Ruben, just want your reaction to Kevin De Bruyne announcing that he will be leaving Manchester City at the end of the season. How have you rated him as a player?
But that is easy. He was like one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. The time passes to everyone, so it's a natural thing. He improved the league. He was on the wrong side of Manchester. So I wish him good luck. It was a pleasure to see him in Portugal a lot of times. So I hope he enjoyed the rest of his life.
Yeah. Ruben, how do you assess the moment that Manchester City are in facing your team? Because obviously when you faced them at the Etihad earlier on in the campaign, they were struggling far more then. Do you think they've recovered from that, or do you still see some of the same problems?
No, I'm more focused on our problems. I think we have bigger problems than Manchester City. They had that run in that moment, but they improved. They can play in different ways. It's really hard to understand how and to think how they are going to face us. So they have maybe the best coach in the world. So they have top players. So it will be a difficult match. But like I said, I'm so focused on improving my team that I'm not worried about the improvements of Manchester City. Just try to understand how Manchester City is going to play to help my players to be on top of their game.
Was the win there the best moment you've had as United manager so far?
I don't know. It's hard to. Sometimes I'm really happy with the small things, not with the big things. And I don't see one game, especially in this kind of club, but in the former clubs, I don't see it one win as a special moment. Special moment is to be really competitive, to win titles. That is the biggest moment. Winning games, you can win. Even in third division, you can win against the best team in the country. So I don't see it that way.
Thank you.
Mason Mount's been training for nearly 4 weeks now. Is he fit enough to start?
Yeah, he can start, but we have to manage his minutes still.
Just on that, I think his last start was against City.
Yeah.
This is a big run-in for the club, but for him in particular, could this be the making of him at United, given the injury issues he's had?
I don't know. The important thing is not to speak about that too much. If not, he's going to think all the time, it's my time, I have to do it. So let's Mason Mount train a lot of times, getting the load in his body, and forget about that. That is really important, because the mind sometimes is more important than the body. So I don't. It's one more player that is fit to play. We'll see on Sunday.
Sad day. a happy day for the fact that the pleasure personally that we live, or I live this time with him. What he gave us, all of us, his humanity, and of course, don't necessarily tell his influence in our success in the last decade. That will be impossible to imagine, without him. And a sad day because, of course, it's part of us. He's leaving. So when Vincent left, or Sergio left, or David Silva left, and these players have been contribution, and I will say more names. So these example 3. Of course, it's a time that it's a sad day. So, but still we have 10 games and hopefully 11 and 6 games at home that we can enjoy with our fans, and he will get, I'm pretty sure, the love and the recognition that all of us, the fans, of course, that he deserves.
Where does he rank in terms of players you've managed, but also within Premier League history?
I think I've been involved in, I read today or yesterday, 280 goals in terms of goals and assists in the Premier League. So the Premier League is one of the greatest midfielders I ever play in this country, and I think that this club is no doubt about that. Always when you say is the greatest, not the greatest, so it's always have to be careful for respect for the, players who play main roles and incredible players that play for the last, 20, 30 years in this club. But come on, there's no doubt he's one of the greatest for sure, because of his consistency, except the last year and a half, that I had injury problems, and the consistency, and in important games and not important games, and every 3 days being there all the time. So that is no doubt.
Finally, for me, does it feel like the right time? He's out of contract in the summer. It feels like the squad is getting a refresh. He's obviously had a few injuries to deal with as well. Does now feel like the right time?
The most important that he feels good right now. I think we spoke recently, lately, that he had problems, and now he feels finally, because after the surgery he had in the hamstring, had the problems here in other part of the body, but now he feels, step by step, he feels ready. His decision is made, and of course, for all of us, we wish him, to Michelle, the kids, mom and dad, so absolutely the best. It was nice. So I think always we had a special relation. Kevin's a special person, a special player. So when a special person, special player, might be treated in the special way. And of course we had a conversations with that, of course. So it's 1 decade. So do you know how many games together, how many meetings, how many training sessions, how many good moments, bad moments, how many hugs, how many shouts, how many, it was involved in 1 decade. Except the day off, except international breaks, except the holidays, every single day we were together. So when thinking now will be over, so come on, so we will not be, what should happen if you are not a fact? So it's an emotional moment. Always with Sergio, for example, and it was not easy for me to tell him that no continue, because there are players that have done that club like we is right now, and these situations is always so difficult because the emotions are there, they are involved, because they give us too much. So everybody knows that. Can you imagine the way we played, some moments and some seasons incredible, nice and attractive without Kevin? When Leroy or Raheem running behind, or the moments for Sergio in the pockets, and when we drop in, or Gabriel, or all the strikers there, they were benefit for the talent, the skills from Kevin. So in the amount, so 280 involved, goals and assists, is huge. And seeing that, of course, we are going to enjoy the last 2 months here together. So, but of course, it's emotionally tough. It's difficult.
Well, that Kevin De Bruyne, obviously just magical, and we're going to see loads more tributes before the end of the season. It's completely taken over the narrative for the derby on Sunday. There is a small matter of a Manchester derby to be played. What do we think ahead of that game? City managing a win in midweek, Manchester United losing to Nottingham Forest, City in the middle of that European battle?
I just can't trust Manchester United in any circumstance at the moment. I know they're finding their way. There's little bits, patches of form that they look to be getting back. But I would more look at City and their attacking power to undo United than I would place any faith in United being able to undo City.
Yeah, speaking of that attacking power of City, how impressed have you been with Mamouche since he's come in, especially now with Haaland being out injured?
What a player. Do you know what? He's one of those players that, again, similar to Kevin De Bruyne, it looks like he's playing on the playground with his friends. He's enjoying himself so much. And when you change teams, especially mid-season, it's so difficult to catch up with the pace. He went there in January, didn't he?
Yeah.
So to catch up with the pace of the Premier League initially, with what your new manager and how your teammates play, that's so difficult.
Why is that difficult?
Because you've been, in pre-season, you're taught to play a certain way and you're trained in a certain way. So one manager will say, right, leave the opposition team with the ball, let them come into our half and then we'll close them down. We'll set up here, here and here and here, etc. Others, like Pep, for example, will say, well, no, we're going on a full court press because when we win the ball back, we're in a great aggressive offensive position where it's going to take 2 passes and we're in, having a chance at goal. So it might be difficult. It might have been a bit of a challenge initially for him to get up to pace. But we've not seen that. He literally hit the ground running. His first couple of games for City were out of this world, and it's like he'd been there for a year already.
I mean,
I'm a huge fan.
I do agree. I look at that Manchester United defence. They would give us an opportunity if we played against them, I think. As far as
us three.
Even in these heels.
Full court press. I think as far as Mamouche is concerned, he's got the speed of thought, the ingenuity, the composure in that final third as well to take advantage of a United defence that is just shocking. It's the worst that we've seen in the Premier League ever. And so yes, it's a huge game with huge context and obviously big names. But I don't look at it at any level and think to myself, United can do this. I know they're looking for the double over City, but that's because it's a City side in transition. But of the two teams, which would you take right now?
Yeah.
City all day long. All day
And
long.
it was that Ahmad brilliance at the end of the last derby that really won it for Manchester United, wasn't it? So not a case of, they are looking for the double, but you seem to say that it would be they'd be hard pressed to repeat those heroics.
I think they would be because just defensively they're still all over the place. They're still struggling to adapt to the way that Amorim wants to play. I think as far as City are concerned, there is a little bit more optimism to go into the next phase of the season.
And these are some of the defensive frailties. This is what they're up against. Elanga, very, very quick player, don't get me wrong, but he shouldn't be brushing players off the ball.
Thank you. And how is he being allowed to run that length? The length of the pitch. It makes no sense. And I think it kind of sums up how defensively poor United are and how offensively toothless they are because you get an opportunity like that late in the game, you cannot allow them to clear off the line.
You've got to put it away. And it's you mentioned it, it's the mental frailty. They're a fragile side, but not because they've been through a whole host of difficult situations. They're just not good enough. And that's amazing, and it's surprising to hear that about a Manchester United team. We're talking about Manchester United, one of the biggest footballing clubs in world football, being fragile, being weak, being where they are in the Premier League table. It's embarrassing.
They could do. I'll let you carry on. Otherwise, I'll rave too much about them.
Oh, you got to finish the... Okay, well, you know what? What we're going to do is we're going to hear from a man who played in 15 Manchester derbies. We're going to hear from Sean Wright-Phillips. He's joining us now to talk about the Manchester derby. But not only that, obviously Kevin De Bruyne as well. Sean, so great to be hearing from you tonight, our resident Manchester City expert. Let's talk first about the big news that dropped today. Kevin De Bruyne saying these will be his final few games at Manchester City. What was your initial reaction when you saw it?
I'm gutted, not just for Manchester City, but for the whole of the Premier League. I think when you lose the talent and a player like that, it's going to affect everybody, not just the club. But I didn't see it coming. I thought they would have figured it out.
Yeah, Sean, did it surprise you as well, the timing of the announcement? Because we just been talking about that in a little bit earlier before you joined us. You know, it's a few days before the Manchester derby, a couple of days before the end of the season. Was that surprising to you as well when he made the announcement?
Yeah, very much so. I think he's made it because he wanted to let people know first instead of people finding out from everywhere else. So I've got to respect him as a player and a man for doing it that way. But yeah, it is surprising, especially before a big game. And hopefully it will spur them forward in that game.
Yeah. A decade at Manchester City, Sean, obviously a legend of the club. The tributes will now pour in. They will we'll be seeing loads of VTs like the one we just had of his greatest moments, of how he influenced this all-conquering City side. How do you describe Kevin De Bruyne at the heart of Manchester City?
In many ways, he's undescribable. I think he's one of those talents that he's played, I think something like 277 games and he's got 187 goal contributions. How do you get that back into another player? I think he's a phenomenal player, and I was lucky enough to meet him. He's a wonderful human being as well.
Sean, we obviously, since the news broke earlier today, me and Jermaine have been debating this top 3 best ever. From the point of view of a guy who's played at that level and alongside players of that calibre, what puts you in that level? What is it that he has that puts you in that elite top 3 level?
The fact that in many ways you can turn the game on the head. I think we've seen him single-handedly from midfield, not just create, but win a game by scoring goals. I remember, I think it was against Forest, and I thought they defended well. It was a few years back, and he just shredded them single-handedly. They didn't do anything wrong, but he's just magic. He can influence any game he wants.
Do you think, from his point of view, you said that you were surprised by the timing. What normally happens when a decision like this is made?
It's always different, I'd say, Darren, and it depends on the player, I suppose, in many ways. But I think I'm still gutted about it. I wanted to see him again. So I think he's just made his decision. And in many ways, he didn't want it to be dragged out more than it has done, because it's been going on quite a while now.
Yeah.
Sean, last but not least, I'm glad these two let me have a question. KDB, one of the best centre midfield players in Premier League history. What one is your favourite goal of his?
Oh.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from, but sadly, I think it was the one against in the Champions League against Real Madrid. The rocket he hits along the ground.
Oh, the daisy cutter.
Yeah.
Sean, just finally, we were talking about the Manchester derby just before you joined us. What are your thoughts on Sunday's big game?
I think it's going to be quite open and end to end. I caught a glimpse of some of the Man United versus Forest game, and that was it seemed at times it was like a pinball game where no one really had control. We know Forest don't really like the ball, but when they do get the ball, they attack, and Man United seem to try and do the same thing. So I think it'll be quite open, especially if Marmoush is who's going to start now, and you got the 2 wingers that were playing on the weekend. It'll be quite an open game. I hope it is.
Yeah, so do we. We're hoping for an open game. It's always entertaining. Thank you so much for your time, Sean.
Cheers, Sean.
No problem. See you later.
In a bit.
Right, there was Sean Wright-Phillips joining us here just to chat about Kevin De Bruyne. The big news, of course, which has just dominated the opening of team talks, and I'm sure will dominate for the weekend as we build up to the Manchester derby, is that Kevin De Bruyne has announced it will be his last couple of games at Manchester City. Grateful to be in your company wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Team Talks. Welcome, back by popular demand, to the bad boys in the building, Jermaine Beckford and Darren.
For you.
What you going to do? What are they going to? What are you going to do if they come for you dressed to the nines in an oatmeal suit, wearing trainers as they call them here? What is going on? Matt, Jermaine's already ordered 2 oatmeal suits after seeing you walk into this building like this.
From me.
Oh, you are stunting, looking fly, Darren, looking fly. Yeah. Okay,
Nice.
yeah.
On fire, isn't he?
Absolutely. We're shocked.
Listen, the vibe is chill, so we decided, I decided.
The vibe is chill. We finally got through to it, man. We finally got through to it.
We made it. Job done, guys and girls.
Job
Well
done,
played.
job done. Well done, well done. Okay, listen, big news this weekend. Obviously, Manchester derby coming up. And then today, it feels kind of out of the blue that Kevin De Bruyne announces, this is it, my last few games at Manchester City. What was your initial reaction?
Well, with my media head on, I'm assistant editor of a media platform, what a story. 48 hours before the Manchester derby, everything else gets ripped up. Yes, the press conference is interesting, but suddenly all of the other issues pale into insignificance behind what is the response from Guardiola to this news. Now, 2 things are significant about it for me. The first is that the news was not released by City. It was released by De Bruyne. So instinctively, again, with my journalist head on, I'm thinking, why? Why is it not City? Why is it De Bruyne? Are City in control of this announcement? What is their reaction to it? They're all things that I think, if I'm doing my job, because generally, with news of any departure of any player from any club, the club normally determines it, or the club and the player release the news together. But on this occasion, you've got a huge player who's made a decision for himself, and there is a line in it, isn't there? You deserve it to come from me.
Yeah. Why don't we get the statement up so we can actually see that and confirm before we get you involved, Jermaine, because I'm quite curious about what you think the kind of conversations are that he would have been having. So here is the statement from Kevin De Bruyne released on his social media. And he says, I'll get straight to it and let you all know that these will be my final few months as a Manchester City player. And there is that line. The day is here. You deserve to hear it from me first. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a couple of lines out there, obviously hugely emotional as well, whether we like it or not. He says, it's time to say goodbye. This will always be our home, talking about himself and his family. We cannot thank the City club staff, teammates, friends and family enough for this 10-year ride. Every story comes to an end, but this has definitely been the best chapter. Let's enjoy these last moments together.
If I may, I think with this situation, if you look at City as a whole, everything in terms of football is controlled by the manager. Everything. So, again, I'm more talking with my journalistic head on rather than speculating about anything. But you do think, as a journalist, why, with Guardiola set to speak today, has this news come from De Bruyne and not Guardiola? Then you think to yourself, well, De Bruyne is quite well known for determining all of his own contracts. He is somebody who's very much a master of his own footballing destiny. And so there are all sorts of kind of issues that you think around the circumstances that are separate from his contribution. And we've seen what has been said by Guardiola. He's one of the best, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just the circumstances. Why now? Why him? Why not the club?
Yeah, Jermaine, just from your own experience when you decided that, it was time on your career, what kind of conversations do you think could have been happening behind the scenes? We know he was discussing a possible contract extension that stalled, I think, in September when he got injured. Just give us some insight into what kind of discussions would have been happening either with his family or perhaps with the club.
I think with Kev De Bruyne, it's more about him controlling his own destiny, and Darren touched on it there. Because he controls all of his contracts, he does the negotiations, etc. He needs to make sure that he's ahead of whatever it is. And from me, I'm looking at it from a player's perspective or an ex-player's perspective, thinking, right, well, there's been discussions behind the scenes, but there's clearly been a fallout of some sorts. What level that is, whether it's one that can never be repaired or one that is just like, I don't really...
Do you think...
amicable.
Yeah.
It's more, I'm going to say I'm leaving at the end of the season, and now I can have discussions with other teams. Nobody else is going to keep me here. No other team is going to say, right, well, we're negotiating with each other and City might still put a contract to us. 10 years is a long time at any football club, and he's won pretty much everything there is to win. We're talking about one of the best midfield players in Premier League history. And I feel it's only right that it comes from the player rather than the club in that instance. Why? Because it's his own career, it's his own destiny. And lots of people talk about players having loyalty to football clubs. And to an extent, I completely agree. I couldn't agree more. At the same time, and it's a double-edged sword, at the same time, nobody talks about clubs being loyal to football players. You know, players and clubs both want the same thing. They want to be successful. They want to win games, and they want to build their own brands as well, whether that be the player building his own brand, his or her own brand, or the club building their brand globally or just locally. I don't see a problem with him coming out with that statement. I actually thought it was a beautiful statement. Oh, yeah. It got to the point, and it's given respect and appreciation exactly where it's due. Yeah. And from that perspective, the respect for Kev De Bruyne through my eyes is through the roof.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about his contribution and his standing in the game. But ahead of the Manchester derby on Sunday, both managers have been speaking about that huge news that Kevin De Bruyne will be leaving City in the summer.
And these situations is always so difficult because the emotions are there, they are involved, you know, because they give us too much. So everybody knows that. Can you imagine the way we played, some moments and some seasons incredible, nice and attractive without Kevin? When Leroy or Raheem running behind, or the moments for Sergio in the pockets, and when we drop in, or Gabriel, or all the strikers there, they were benefit for the talent, the skills from Kevin. So in the amount, so 280 involved, you know, goals and assists, it's huge. But of course, it's emotionally tough. It's difficult.
He was like one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. The time passes to everyone, so it's a natural thing. He improved the league. He was on the wrong side of Manchester. So I wish him good luck. It was a pleasure to see him in Portugal a lot of times. So I hope he enjoys the rest of his life.
Yeah, both managers paying tribute there to a player that has been so integral to Manchester City, this dynasty that they've built. And he mentioned in there he's won everything, 6 Premier League trophies, 16 trophies in total, 1 Champions League, of course, to stand out for the club. Just talk to me about Kevin.
Is that all?
It's just the minor, wow. 1 Champions League. Just talk to me about Kevin De Bruyne and what makes him such an incredible player in this league that is so difficult to dominate, by the way.
Do you know what? It's such a difficult question to answer, because when you watch him play, especially over the years where we've seen the evolution of Kev De Bruyne, not only his goals, the contributions, but also his influence on the team, on the pitch. When he was in his prime especially, every time he picked the ball up, something was going to happen. Every single football fan around the world would say, oh no, Kev De Bruyne has got the ball in the opposition half. Something's going to happen. Who's going to score? Who's making the move? Who's making the run? It could even be him. We've seen it here. The pace that he possesses, the power, the strength, the vision, the all-round ability, the way he strikes the ball, his technique. I don't think there's a football fan in the world who doesn't appreciate Kev De Bruyne or like him as a person. He's not one of those players that rustles feathers in the wrong way. You can't look at him and say, nah, I'm not a fan of his. No. He's not got a great personality, or he's not. Nobody has anything bad to say about him. 100%. Incredible football player and seemingly an incredible person as well.
Where does he rank in the list of... sorry. Where does he rank in the list of Premier League all-time great midfielders? And will his ranking move up the further away we get from his career in the Premier League, do you think?
It's a really good question because, you heard me kind of gasping every time one of those goals came up, and they weren't even his very best. They were just some of them at the moment. I remember the one that the ball for Oscar Bob when City played Newcastle. And De Bruyne came on, I think it was second half, and just pinged a couple of balls. And I remember being at the Manchester derby and seeing him ping a couple of balls to the back post for Erling Haaland. And when Haaland scored, there was more of a gasp rather than a cheer, because you're marvelling at the composure to convert. You're marvelling at the trajectory of the pass and the vision. And I think they both speak to what De Bruyne is all about. And for that reason, I think he would be definitely in the top 3 midfielders in Premier League history.
Wow.
Just in terms of what makes one of the all-time greats. Class, quality, consistency, the ability to do it again and again, the ability to change games that aren't going your way, the ability to disregard the opposition, to make it look, if you are in a pitch full of quality, as though you are 10 feet taller than any other player. And so often when you see Kevin De Bruyne play, that is how you would characterise him.
It was like he was practicing training attack versus defence, and he was in the attack every single time he touched the pitch, every time he got on the ball. He wasn't worried about giving the ball away or losing the ball or misplacing a pass. It was easy. He made it look so easy, and that's one of the hardest things to do as a football player.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. When he gets the ball, and you always knew as to watch you play, sometimes when you watch really good players playing, you're thinking, pass, do this, do that, do that. And he just stands and he waits and he decides what he's going to do. He's almost 2 moves in front of everybody else. There is genuine... It's too easy to say, he's a great... The word legend is overused. You've got to quantify what makes him so great, and that's what it is. He is somebody who can spot a pass, score a goal, score any type of goal, close range, header from outside the box. There is so many tools in his armoury that mark him down as an all-time great and levels above a lot of midfielders that we rave about in the Premier League.
Well, Kevin De Bruyne is a certified Premier League legend, and the praise for the Belgian master just keeps on coming.